Good morning. Today is Wednesday, October 5th, and this is the time and place for the regularly scheduled Nevada Gaming Control Board meeting for the month of October. Madam Secretary, has our agenda been posted in accordance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Today we'll be covering all the items noted on our October agenda. So, Madam Secretary, let's start with public comment.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
Okay. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please step forward and state your name for the record. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name is Diamante Asbury, Diamante Asberry. I'm here representing the Culinary Union. We're here again to ask for a comprehensive investigation of station casinos and to give another reason why. I want to update you on a public meeting that took place a few weeks ago on September 14th in the city of North Las Vegas, where Station Casinos is seeking to develop a new casino resort. Station Casinos Chief Legal Officer Jeffrey Welch stood before a public commission and an audience with casino workers and claimed, "So we consider ourselves to have been a very solid citizen throughout the pandemic." In the audience of this meeting were workers from Station Casinos' closed properties that are set for demolition. Their reaction to what the Chief Legal Officer said was raw and emotional. I was there. As we told you before, the U.S. government is prosecuting Station Casinos for allegedly engaging in a scheme to use layoffs during the pandemic to undermine unions. When Station Casinos' chief legal officer was speaking, he made claims about Nevada law that are not true. Mr. Welch said, "For the last 14 months, we have actually not been permitted to hire any of these people to our other properties because of SB 386, which did not allow us to act." This is not true. The chief legal officer for a Nevada gaming company should understand Nevada law. All SB 386 requires each property to do is first rehire the employees from that property. If there were openings after they were offered to the employees from that property, there was nothing in the law that prohibited Station Casinos from hiring employees from other properties. And of course, there is nothing in the law that would have prohibited Station Casinos from rehiring employees with their seniority intact, their vacation intact, and their wage rates intact. In May of this year, the NLRB's general counsel issued a new complaint against Station Casinos, alleging that the reason the company has failed to recall workers as required by SB 386 was to discriminate against them because they had advocated for its passage through rallies, press statements, testimony before the Nevada legislature, and that this was yet another way that the company has tried to discourage support for the union. And finally, as we've told you before, Mr. Welch was among the Station Casinos executives whose credibility while testifying under oath was questioned by an administrative law judge of the National Labor Relations Board involving Red Rock Casino Resort and Spa. The judge found Mr. Welch and other Red Rock Resorts Inc. executives to have given highly questionable, discredited testimony about significant matters, even though they were testifying under oath. Red Rock Casino Resort and Spa has accepted to the findings. We urge you to speak with Station Casinos' chief legal officer about what he has said under oath and on public record. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make a public comment? Please step forward and state your name.
Hello, my name is Dulce Valladares, DULCVADARES. I worked for Station Casinos for over 6 years. Before the pandemic, I worked as a full-time cook's helper at the Feast Buffet at Sunset Station. With the pandemic closure in 2020, we were informed that the buffet was no longer going to be reopened. We were being laid off and out of a job. I then attended 3 job fairs held at Boulder Station, Red Rock, and Green Valley. About a month before the right to return law came into effect, I was hired for a position as a new part-time cook. This position had a lower wage, no seniority, and no benefits. The company treated me as a new hire during the pandemic, even though I already worked for them for 6 years. I'm a full-time cook now. I want my seniority back, and I want Station Casinos to respect the workers who have worked for them for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment? If so, please step forward. State your name for the record. Okay, none in Las Vegas. Carson City, is there anyone? I do not see anyone. Okay, Madam Secretary, that will close our public comment period. Let's move on to our agenda, and that is the approval of the prior month's disposition.
Pursuant to NRS 241.035, this item is the consideration of the approval of the Nevada Gaming Control Board disposition for September 2022 and the workshop meeting minutes from September 26, 2022.
Okay. We've each had an opportunity to review the disposition. Would either of my colleagues like to make a motion?
I will do that, Chair Gibson. I move to approve the Nevada Gaming Control Board minutes from the workshop held on September 26, 2022, along with the disposition items from the Gaming Control Board's August 2022 meeting.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye, thank you. Okay, Madam Secretary, that brings us to non-restricted agenda items. Let's start with number 1, please.
Non-restricted number 1 is the application of Aristocrat Leisure Limited for an amendment to their order of registration.
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Gibson, Member Katsaros, Member Watkins, Madam Secretary. For the record, Greg Giordano, the law firm of McDonald Carano, appearing here on behalf of the applicant. With me at the podium on my right is Joyce Arpin. She's a Senior Vice President, Finance and Treasury for Aristocrat. Since we have a kind of more complicated revised order registration proposed before, I thought I'd go over that and explain that a little bit, the components of that, and then we can take questions after that.
All right. In the process of doing that, if you could just explain how the underlying agreements and loans were sort of gotten rid of and then exchanged or whatever.
So the application is Aristocrat Leisure Limited for the amendment to order registration to basically for approval to change the identity of the administrative agent and security trustee from UBS AG Stamford branch to Bank of America NA, pursuant to the requirements of paragraph 13 of the previous 14th revised order registration. And that paragraph, while allowing administrative approval of the chair of the board to amend pledge agreements, security agreements, et cetera, that approval, administrative approval, cannot be granted if you're going to change the identity of the collateral agent. In this case, that's why we had these applications before you, because that's exactly what's happening here. The other applicants, besides Aristocrat Leisure Limited, that this affects, we've gotten approvals in the order for pledges previously, are Aristocrat International Pty Limited, Aristocrat Holdings Pty Limited, and Aristocrat Technologies Holdings Pty Limited. In going over the order before you, actually, we apologize, we found one typographical error in paragraph number 2. The date of the 14th revised order registration was not 2022, but 2020. So with that correction, I've discussed this with Deputy Chief Russell Teggio and Chief Carl Hoffman, and will probably necessitate a draft number 3 for approval of the commission before the commission meeting if the board recommends approval of this application. Moving along, you have paragraph 13, which is the genesis of the approval application in front of you. Paragraph 14 has been deleted because that financing has been paid off recently and therefore is no longer in existence. So that can be deleted. With respect to new paragraph 14B, that language is being deleted because press releases are no longer required under regulation 16 to be provided to the board staff automatically. And that's the reason for that. Also recently, the compliance committee membership has changed with respect to the Aristocrats Compliance Committee. So in paragraph 23 of the revised order, we're revising that to affect the current components and membership of the compliance committee members to reflect what's going on now with that. And that basically is it, Chair Gibson, with respect to the 15th revised order registration before you for your consideration. Again, with the one typographical error correction, it might become now draft number 3 for the commission. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Giordano. Let me open it to questions about transactions underlying this order.
I didn't have any questions on the transaction itself.
I don't have any questions on the transaction.
Any questions on the order itself?
I'm sorry.
Any questions about the order?
No, not on the order either.
Okay, we've got the date right. Okay. All
As
right.
part, I guess I will pose one question as part of the motion, presumably that I will make, though. I would just simply reflect as noted by Mr. Giordano.
That would work, member
Okay,
Soros.
thank you.
Okay. With that, I would ask for a motion.
I did just want to ask a couple questions on the financial side. If you could just talk about the financial health of the company, which by all accounts look pretty strong.
Yes, you're right. So we released our half-year results in May, and we indicated a strong performance in our gaming and digital segments. And last week at an investor roundtable, we reiterated our fiscal year 22 outlook, which again is strong performance in both segments, generating strong operating cash flow and strong liquidity and low leverage. So we continue to reinvest back in our business from a D&D perspective, pay dividends back to our shareholders, and we are also recently repurchasing shares from our shareholders. So
Before you
nothing
finish,
new.
would you state your name? We have a remote.
Sorry. Name is Joyce Arbin, SVP of Finance and Treasury for the company. And we will be reporting our fiscal year 22 results in mid-November, reiterating everything we just said last week.
In terms of what you're seeing in the industry right now, are you starting to see the operators purchasing equipment at a more normalized level, if you will?
Yes, not quite back to pre-COVID levels, but yes, outright sales for us have been strong this year compared to last year and definitely post-pandemic. So we're getting there, not quite back to the peak levels, but we are getting there and we expect that to remain strong over the next year as well.
And then I just want to ask a question on the digital side of the business, if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
The Playtech deal obviously didn't go through. It seemed as if from the press releases we were reading was that the plan was therefore then to go out and sort of do the development on your own perhaps, or perhaps look at other possible acquisition opportunities there.
Yes, you're right. In February, we announced that the Playtech shareholders did not approve that acquisition. So we closed that deal. We did form a new segment for the company focused on real money online gaming, primarily of internal employees that are now focused on that segment. There's a CEO, a finance head, operations, legal team, all focused on growing that portion of our non-core adjacency. 2 weeks ago, we announced a small acquisition in the UK, a company called Roxor Gaming, and that is complementing that RMG strategy. It's going to give us a remote gaming server, some new content, and primarily 100 plus employees that will help us from that development perspective. So we are still very much focused on expanding into real money online gaming from a buy strategy and also building our own. And we do anticipate entering into some states hopefully this year. We talked about that on our last earnings call. We'll talk about that more in mid-November.
Okay, I guess I didn't read that press release fully then, so that with that acquisition, you actually acquired an RGS?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anything further?
Yeah, thank you. I was interested in the development of your iGaming platform as well. But so thank you for answering that. Just a couple of questions to confirm on the record. As of today, you have no material litigation pending?
That's correct.
And then you have no new regulation violations over the amount of $10,000. Is that correct?
I believe that's
To the best
correct.
of your knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a single amendment to this order. With that, any additional questions?
I didn't have anything further, Chair. I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay, please.
Chair Gibson, I move to recommend approval of non-restricted item number 1 as read into the record by Secretary Rubric pursuant to draft number 3, with the change as noted by Mr. Giordano on the record. And that's draft number 3 of the company's 15th revised order of registration dated, well, to be dated soon.
October 20th, or whatever the draft dated, yeah.
As determined by Chief Hoffman.
Madam Secretary.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
And I want
much.
to thank Special Agent David Mueller and Deputy Chief Russell Pego for their work and assistance on the application. They're great to work with as always, and we appreciate their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Secretary, let's go on to number 2.
Non-restricted number 2 is the application of Zen Sports, Inc., doing business as Big Wheel Casino for a transfer of interest as noted on the agenda. It is also the application of Robert Kowalski for licensure as a shareholder and key employee as noted on the agenda.
Okay, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Gibson, members of the board, Executive Secretary. For the record, my name is Glenn Light with the law firm Lewis Roker. I am accompanied today by Robert Kowalski, who is the applicant, and in the audience is Mark Thomas, who is the president and majority owner of Zen Sports. So we're here today to request that Mr. Kowalski be licensed as a key employee and an owner of Zen Sports, which is doing business as a Big Wheel Casino. To start, we would like to thank Special Agent Jeff Zinn for all of his work on this specific application, as well as his continued work with Zen Sports. As you may be aware, Zen has remained in constant communication with Special Agent Zinn per the conditions on its license. With your permission, Mr. Kowalski would like to make an affirmative presentation addressing his background and role at the company.
Please.
And then following that, Mr. Thomas is available to answer any questions that you may have regarding the status of the company.
Thank you. Mr. Kowalski, please step forward, state your name, and tell us about yourself.
Of course, good morning. My name is Robert Kowalski, Kowalski. Good morning, Chair Gibson, Member Watkins, Member Katsaros, Madam Secretary. A little bit of background about where I was and where I am today. So in 2004, I began my career in gaming as a sportsbook ticket writer at the Barbary Coast. And then from late 2004 to about 2012, I supervised operations in sportsbooks at the El Cortez, in Las Vegas, the Venetian, before moving to New Jersey and becoming a director of operations for Meadowlands Racetrack in one of their off-track betting facilities. Shortly after, from 2013 to 2015, I was director of horse racing operations for William Hill. And then I transitioned over to Station Casinos as a general manager of operations for the Wildfire Gaming Division, overseeing 3 different properties, also operating as the director of sportsbook operations for all of the Wildfire properties. And so that was the experience that I felt really brings me to where I am today in managing the Big Wheel, which I'll get to in just a moment. The Wildfire properties gave me a really great level of experience in managing slot operations as opposed to just sportsbook. And so that's where I started to gain the knowledge of the machine, how it operates, all of the issues that might come up from a compliance perspective. So as we move to 2019, this is where I took on the position as Director of Sportsbook for Strategic Gaming Management's Baldini's property up in Sparks. And that brings us to where I am today with Zen Sports. And so as General Manager of Sportsbook Operations and Casino Operations and Compliance, I oversee the property. And at this point, it definitely concentrates far more on the slot operations than sports, as on October 26th of 2021, when we were licensed, we transitioned to ensuring that Big Wheel was a slot operation far more than taking advantage of the license in sportsbook. And so that's exactly where we are today in terms of the operation for Big Wheel. I oversee some of the detail there. I oversee 6 registered gaming employees there at the Big Wheel. It is a slot operation, as I mentioned, and thanks to Strategic Gaming Management's agreement with us, we have them as the manager on record of the slot route operation. And so it's very manageable from not only from a slot operation perspective, but from a compliance perspective. So I could definitely, say that I'm comfortable with where we're at in terms of managing the operation. With what I've done in the past with Wildfire, it was far more of a lift than where we're at, today in terms of operating the Big Wheel today.
So if I can ask a question, as I look at your CV, so from 16 to 19, you were with Stations and Wildfire, and you were director of sportsbook and GM. Then 19 to 21, Baldini's. So it makes sense the next move, 21 to present, to be with Zen Sports. But tell me about the distinctions. Zen Sports is relatively new, smaller startup, and compare that with Stations, for example.
It definitely is market differences.
Yeah.
I feel that with what I did with Wildfire and their operation, it prepared me for any of the challenges that would come. Honestly, with what I have seen in operating Big Wheel, to me, it's something where I wanted to concentrate early and often on making sure that the experience that the guests would receive, many of them locals, a lot of them, in the truck driving industry would, get an experience that would be far better than they expected. And so what I do today is I feel enhanced by my experience that I had at Wildfire, Chair Gibson.
And when Zen Sports first appeared in front of us, we had some concerns with capitalization, and there were some new ideas that they put forward, non-fungible tokens, for example. And so, tell me, do you see them pivoting back to a more traditional model of casino operation?
I would think that a question like that will probably be best answered by Mark Thomas.
Okay.
Will be coming up just shortly, and can ask him regarding the non-fungible tokens there.
All right. And I also want to talk about Keystar and their operations with Zen Sports. Is Mr. Thomas the best person to respond to that? Thank you. I'm sorry. Do any of you have questions for?
In terms of your background,
Of course.
Well, my questions relate to this, so you go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Excellent.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record first.
My name is Mark Thomas. I am the co-founder and CEO of Zen Sports Inc.
Okay. So tell us about the trajectory of your company right now.
Yeah. So as you know, last August when we were here, we were applying for our gaming license for Big Wheel Casino for the slot operations as well as the sports book that we were going to implement. We had developed a sports betting app, and the goal was to launch that in Nevada and then to grow that into additional states beyond Nevada. As the markets, the public markets, the macroeconomic situation kind of changed towards the end of last year, we started looking at potential M&A opportunities, and we had quite a bit of interest from several different companies to acquire the assets for Zen Sports. Now, as you know, we have essentially Nevada licensed assets such as the casino, the Nevada app, et cetera. And then we have non-Nevada assets, which is the standalone technology product, the branding, et cetera. And so we knew as we got into these conversations with potential acquirers that we were not going to just be able to, for example, do a stock sale and sell the whole company or bundle everything under one bucket. We were going to have to separate the two out. So what we did was exactly that. We entered into an agreement with Keystar, an LOI, I should say, back in June. That was to essentially trifurcate the transaction to three buckets. One was the acquisition of the Zen Sports team. The other was the acquisition of the non-Nevada assets. And then the third and final piece were the Nevada assets, such as Big Wheel Casino and the associated gaming licenses that came with it. We have already consummated the first two, so the team and the non-Nevada assets have already.
So your IP is now owned by Keystar then?
All non-Nevada IP, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it distinguishable?
I'm sorry, what was
Is
that?
it distinguishable?
Yes, it's very distinguishable
Okay.
because the non-Nevada assets are all the technology pieces that don't touch Nevada at all.
No, I understand that piece. I mean, geographically, it's distinguishable, but I mean, do you have different platforms?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
right.
Yes, there are actually different platforms. You have to do that for all the regulations that's required here. You actually have to have separate servers, separate apps, everything like that. So yes, so that was consummated in August. That transaction closed in August. And then obviously, the next phase would be for Keystar to acquire the Big Wheel Casino and to go through that gaming license application process, similar to what Zen Sports did, strategic game management from 2020 to 2021.
You said it was an LOI though.
Yeah.
That was in June.
Okay.
And then the transaction for the non-Nevada assets actually closed. All the asset
Separate.
purchase agreement documents were signed and closed in August.
Could you clarify the one point that Chair Gibson just asked you on the separate platforms? We're talking about sports betting platforms.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Sorry.
How do you?
IP in particular? I mean, so when you say that, I'm not just looking for different servers. I want to know fundamentally if they're different.
Yes. So all the IP is, yes, technically still the same. But as I believe Glenn mentioned, none of the Nevada app technology pieces were ever certified in Nevada or launched in Nevada. Correct. So
And has that been sold to Keystone?
yes. So that's everything that's not under the purview of Nevada has been sold to
Yeah,
Keystar.
so for the sportsbook platform, it's not a regulated asset in Nevada.
Right.
And so that was sold to Keystar.
But the intent was to bring the sportsbook platform here. So given that you don't own it anymore,
Well, no. So so Keystar will. So as part of the letter of intent that we received from Keystar in June, we sent a letter to the board letting them know that we were withdrawing our intent to launch the sports betting app in Nevada, and that Keystar will be launching the sports betting app when hopefully they get their gaming license approved at some point in the future.
And that's why you forewent or got rid of the waiver, the 6
The
month
bulk
waiver.
use option, correct?
Okay, so then at some point they're going to come forward with their application and go through
Correct.
the process. And
Yes, exactly.
can I
And
ask where that is at right now in terms of your dev on the platform, the ability to actually launch it in a market?
So we are looking, or Keystar, I should say, excuse me, is looking to apply for other jurisdictions as well. We have not yet signed the closing documents for the Nevada assets. We are hoping and targeting to do that later this month, at which point Keystar will open up its Nevada application. In the meantime, Keystar will be moving forward with applying in other jurisdictions now that it owns the technology assets, and can begin that process because it doesn't need to close another deal for those other jurisdictions.
But the platform itself, where's it at right now?
That is owned by Keystar.
No, I'm sorry. In terms of your development schedule, when is it able to be actually utilized and
I mean,
deployed?
we're hoping that we can get approved and operational in other jurisdictions 3 to 4 months.
Do you have any certifications from one of the labs?
We did. We received our BMM lab
Okay.
certification back in February.
Okay.
So we got to that point, and then the conversations began happening on the M&A side. So we held off on launching our sports betting app in Nevada, knowing that it might end up going under a new company at some point in the future. It just didn't make sense to go that extra step. But yes, it was certified by BMM back in February.
Have there been any issues related to your platform?
No. In fact, we have not taken any bets on it in 15 months. But we got fully certified by BMM. We have the report for that.
What's the issues with our gaming lab?
There's no issues with the gaming lab. We just, again, we got the certification in February from BMM. We were then in March about to submit to the Nevada Gaming Control Board lab. At that point, though, we started conversations on the M&A side, and just for bandwidth reasons and timing reasons, it just didn't make sense to go through that process with the lab at the Nevada Gaming Control Board, knowing it would probably be in someone else's hands at some point.
Is that the only reason?
I'm sorry?
Is that the only reason why you didn't move forward?
Well, no. So the other part of it is that we talked about this before as well too, is that for the product compliance submission piece of it, this kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said. So the product submission compliance piece of it takes 45 to 60 days. And that was, again, just something we didn't have the bandwidth to do at the time. And as we began the M&A conversations, and that was taking up all of our time, and then we knew it was going to take 45 to 60 days on the Nevada Gaming Control Board lab submission piece, we just said, let's hold off on doing that for now.
Right. And some of our concerns initially during your licensing hearing were related to your bandwidth, that you being small and kind of, just starting out, right? And not experienced in this market or in brick and mortars in general. That was some of our concerns. So how do you help us to relieve those concerns?
So on the Big Wheel Casino side, there have been no issues. I mean, we've been running that, I believe, with our partners at Strategic Gaming Management as a slot route operators, with Robert's experience, with Connie Gottschalk, who's the supervisor and manager that's been there for 15 years. I mean, that runs very, very efficiently. We have no bandwidth concerns there. Okay.
How's business going at the Big Wheel?
It's pretty good. I mean, we did, as you heard back in February when we were here, or when I was here, we made a lot of improvements to the property. Robert was key. So was Connie. In that process, we integrate a lot of new TVs, new sports packages, new beer taps. We remodeled the place to some degree. We replaced the machines that were no longer working. We increased the EBITDA from, I think it was like $20K a month to $30K a month. It's been holding steady ever since then.
What's that comparison to?
I'm sorry?
You said you increased.
Yeah, from previously when it was under Strategic Gaming Management's ownership.
Oh, immediately previously.
Yeah. Right. So we took it over October 26th, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started to make those improvements in those first 90 days.
Okay.
And we started to see that improvement right away. Right. So there's definitely no bandwidth issues on the casino side of things. So that part I want to make really clear.
Mm-hmm.
The bandwidth issue was on the sports betting side. Submitting a technology product to the Nevada Gaming Control Board lab is a process, and there's a lot of steps to that. Given the fact that we started M&A conversations at the same time, we just, it didn't make any sense. At the same time, we had already been running the casino successfully for 5 months, so there was no reason to have any concerns about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I do want to follow up on that point though. So you already went through the lab certification with the ITL, the independent lab.
Yep.
And then at a certain point, you're saying you didn't have the bandwidth to then take it to the next step, which is the finality you're looking for, right?
It's
Which
a
is to
lot.
go
It's a lot of
through-
work.
So you didn't have the bandwidth to support. I didn't
So
understand that.
yeah, let me
Give me a little
touch on
more
that.
on that, please.
Yeah, let me touch on that.
So wouldn't they be testing
Sure.
Nevada standards anyway? I mean, there might be a delta. I suppose.
Yeah, so when you submit to the actual lab in Nevada, basically the process is this. You have the checklist of all the mix and regulations and requirements. And essentially what you have to do is go through each one of those. And it's a very long list.
You're talking about the compliance report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very long list. And you have to go, this feature matches up to this regulation and it operates in this exact way. And to be honest, our team just didn't have that experience. And so it was going to be a almost entirely dedicated 45 to 60 day effort on just that. And there was certainly a possibility that at the end of that 45 to 60 days, we may not have done it exactly the way they wanted, and then we would have had to go through the process again. And so just given that complexity piece, and given the fact that we were simultaneously talking to potential acquirers, we made the strategic decision to just punt on that for the time being.
I truly appreciate that honesty because if you recall, that was one of our main concerns, right? So I appreciate you recognizing that and saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And honestly, we got the BMM lab certification that actually we started that process May of last year. It took 9 months to get that. I mean, we really hustled hard, days and nights, weekends, long hours, to get that certification with all of Nevada Gaming Control Board reporting and reports that we had to do for that. And so my concern was, maybe possibly if we don't do this correctly, it might take more than 45 to 60 days. So that factored into this.
So you guys are learning the environment. That's good to know. You're learning, right?
For sure.
Okay. Sorry, did anything further?
No, that makes more sense now, though, that you're signaling perhaps that it might take a little longer. Was there anything flagged up by BMM that you might have to do additional dev work?
No. So in fact, I would go so far as to say if Keystar will do this, Keystar needs to hire a product compliance person specifically to go through that process to submit with the lab. That could have been another alternative, but that also, could take 30, 45 days to hire that person too. You're looking at 45 to 60 days regardless, right? So I don't see any reason. The report is clean, it's clear. We worked with them, to get that done. They worked with also the lab to have an update on some of the server configuration. We got that done, and they actually issued us a second report on top of that with those. So we got that done satisfactorily for sure.
Yeah, because your initial response was that it went through 9 months of testing with BMM. So all the more reason to go those last, 10 yards to get to the goal line, right? But
yeah,
I understand it's a different process. The compliance report, it's an arduous process. I get it. And you perhaps weren't necessarily confident it wasn't going to take a bit longer. But I do want to ask about the Keystone side of things. So what was your relationship with them prior? How did you come together?
Sure. So we started talking with a few different potential acquisition companies that I have just developed relationships with over the last few years. John Linz, who is the CEO of Keystar, was the former CTO for about 4 years at Caesars. And I got to know him since 2019, just at different trade shows and different business events that we went to, and as well as online on social media. So we developed a really nice relationship. So when the time came and we were starting to talk to potential acquirers, naturally he was a fit, and he was looking to do a lot of interesting things with Keystar on the gaming side, and I developed that relationship with him over the last few years. I really liked working with him, and so ultimately they became not only the best offer, but I also thought the best fit and home for Zen Sports IP. And so, like I said, then we went to the LOI in June and closed on the non-Nevada piece in August.
To that point, so as the employees, including Mr. Kowalski, as they were moved over to Keystar, so your salary now comes from two sources. Is that accurate? So you're in a position where you've applied to be a key employee. So you're a manager of the casino operations, in addition to sportsbook operations. And that source of pay, are they entirely just are they silent?
So on the Keystar side of things,
yes,
we have not launched in any jurisdictions yet. So there is, a little bit of work that we're doing, on, data management as we gear up for that.
What I mean is, is there any control, any kind of effort to manage you?
No.
You're being paid in part 50% by Keystar, and they're not licensed. So that's what I'm getting at.
Correct, exactly. And so in terms of the responsibilities,
Yes.
they're definitely completely different. The responsibilities that I have for Keystar, the responsibilities that I have for Zen Sports they never coincide. They never cross paths.
And to be really clear, Keystar signed a non-interference letter back in June, testing the fact that they will not interfere with any Nevada operations at all. And to be honest, they've been scared that they could accidentally do something, so they take the extra step of like, no, we won't touch anything or do anything with regards to that. They're taking an extra precautious
That's
approach.
helpful. Thank you for that.
When should we expect their application?
I'm hoping next month.
Okay, so imminent.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Can you talk to me about the status of your NFT projects?
So the NFT piece was something that we started to develop in December of last year, NFTs for non-fungible tokens. We thought this could be a really kind of cool futuristic membership and loyalty and rewards platform. So as you know, we have the sports utility token, which we have used for rewards previously in our app in international jurisdictions. We had the sports security token, which we discontinued, obviously, after the August hearings last year. And then in December of last year, we started developing the NFTs. We did that NFT, it's called a drop, in March of this year. It's a collection of futuristic looking athletes. And the goal would be at some point, with obviously regulatory approval, it would be pretty cool to be able to have NFTs represent some type of loyalty program, but we don't have it tied into our product in any way, shape, or form right now. It's just purely a standalone connection that sits on OpenSea.
When do you anticipate attempting to tie it to?
So obviously we would have to request approval. Same thing if we ever, it's the same kind of process if we ever want to ask for approval for our sports utility token, to have that be a rewards token as well in the jurisdiction. We would seek regulatory approval first. And then obviously upon approval, we would implement it. I mean, look, I think there's starting to become more and more appetite. Wyoming has approved crypto transactions. Colorado has approved crypto transactions. I think it's going to come over the next few years, but we obviously, have to go through that process, apply for that.
What do you mean by they've approved crypto transactions? In the
So
gaming space? I mean, for gaming?
you can deposit funds in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies.
But is there an exchange immediately before the gaming transaction?
I have to double check on that. I'm not exactly sure, but I do think Colorado does allow for some type of wagering, but I have to double check on that. I'm not for sure. You can absolutely, though, for sure, deposit and withdraw in cryptocurrencies in those two states.
Okay.
So your business model's changed a little bit in that, say your business direction, in that you've shifted away from Nevada immediately, at least on the sports betting front. You're looking at a couple of other markets. Has your business plan changed, though, in terms of, are you looking to be B2B, B2C?
Great question. So Keystar, sports betting Zen Sports is, for all intents and purposes, out of the sports betting business, correct? Right? Because we don't own the IP to that anymore. So for Keystar, yes, Keystar is definitely interested in pursuing both B2C as well as B2B opportunities, depending on different requirements and opportunities in certain jurisdictions. For example, there may be jurisdictions that either are very expensive to go into or may take a while, or there's other restrictions that make more sense to do with B2B. And then there's other jurisdictions clearly where it makes obvious sense to go into it B2C. So yes, Keystar does have the goal of both B2C and B2B.
Okay, thank you.
So again, back to that question, where do you see Zen Sports going?
Sure. So currently right now, it's
You're
just
staffed to be a sports wagering company.
Yes, but most of that staff has moved over to Keystar. So currently Zen Sports Inc. is only operating and managing Big Wheel Casino. That's it. And obviously that will be transitioning, eventually as well as hopefully Keystar gets its gaming license here.
Okay. Any further questions?
I don't think so on the business side. I just will know from Mr. Kowalski. I didn't have anything concerning in your background to discuss. I noted, we already noted that. So anything further or any other questions for you? Thank you very much for the opening intro, so we didn't have to pull it out of you.
That's nice. Mr. Light's doing. Thank you. Anything further?
I don't have any questions or concerns related to Mr. Walski's background, so thank you for that. The background was clean, and I'm happy to move forward.
Yeah, and that's the heart of this application. So transfer of interest and then his licensure. So with that, if there are no further questions, I would ask for a motion.
Chair Gibson, I move to recommend approval of non-restricted item number 2 as read into the record by Secretary Rupert.
Okay.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Hi. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
number
you so
3.
much. And I just would like to just also mention I'm very gracious and very thankful for everything that Agent Jefferson did for the whole entire process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to number 3, please.
Non-restricted number 3 is the application of Heather Rollo for licensure as a manager and key executive at Interblock USA LC.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm Kimberly Maxim Rushton with the law firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of Heather Rollo, the applicant. Heather is the Chief Financial Officer for Interblock Gaming and a manager for Interblock USA LC. As the board materials will reflect, Ms. Rollo has an extensive history in the gaming industry, where for close to 2 decades, she served as in various financial roles for gaming operators, both in the United States and in Asia. Heather graduated from Southern Utah State University with a degree in accounting, where she also obtained her master's. And although she worked for Boyd Gaming during the summer in college, her entry into the gaming industry did not occur until 2003 when she joined Ameristars Casino. Since then, Ms. Rollo has served as the Chief Financial Officer for multiple companies, as well as the Chief Accounting Officer, where she's earned a reputation in the gaming industry as not only a financial expert, but also a strong commitment to corporate compliance. She joined Interblock in 2021, having previously worked in Hong Kong for Melco Resorts Services since late 2014. With that brief background, it's my pleasure to introduce the applicant to the board, Ms. Heather Rollo, who will give you further background with respect to her professional background, as well as answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Rollo.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Heather Ann Rollo, Chief Financial Officer of Interblock Gaming. Good morning, Madam Secretary, Chair, and board members. Just to touch a bit more on what Kimberly gave on my background, I was born and educated in Utah and graduated with a degree in accounting and a master's degree in accounting. Following my graduation, I relocated here to Las Vegas and started a career in public accounting. And during that 8-year period, I served many of the large gaming companies, not only here, but worldwide, as well as did advisory work on some of the mergers and acquisitions that occurred during that period. I joined Progressive Gaming, which is the former Micon company, in 2005 as the Chief Accounting Officer, and then subsequently was named Chief Financial Officer. At that time, I filed a key license application with Nevada and went through the investigation process. That was substantially complete. And but in January of 2009, I resigned from that position to join Ameristar Casinos in a similar capacity with the and withdrew my application subsequently. And then, as Kimberly mentioned, in the last 7 years, I've been stationed in Hong Kong, working for Melco Resorts and Entertainment. They're a U.S. listed company, but they are headquartered and own casinos in Asia, Southeast Asia, and are doing developments elsewhere in Europe. And very happy to be back here in the United States. Came back in July of 2021 and joined Interblock immediately. And looking forward, we just had a transaction closed whereby Oaktree purchased the 100% of the company in June of this year. And so very excited and looking forward to working with our CEO, John Connolly, and our new partners, Oaktree Capital, in taking the company through its next phase of growth. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. So from Cedar City to Las Vegas and gaming. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'll open it up to questions, please.
What drew you to gaming initially?
It was partially geographical, being so close. The town I was born in is less than 3 hour drive from home. So I, initially came to Las Vegas, being close to home, and because I was here, gaming is such a substantial portion of our business in public accounting. Just really got drawn into the industry, developed expertise, and used that through my career.
So it wasn't necessarily like an interest in gaming in particular, which is kind of, it was in the environment, so you fell
That's right.
into it.
That's right.
Okay. And how is your work in Hong Kong different than your work now?
So in Hong Kong, Melco Resorts was about 20,000 employees, so a bigger company. And I oversaw, I was a chief accounting officer and senior vice president of finance. A substantial portion of my time related to overseeing the public company activities. So we had two public company listings in the US. We had a Hong Kong listing, and at one point we had a Philippines listing in Manila. So a lot of board oversight, financial earnings releases, issuing financial statements, working with audit committees, and just really working with that company to build out its corporate infrastructure to support compliance, public company standards, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
So from 1996, with your master's degree from SUU back then, right?
That's right.
To 05, were you with one of the big five back then?
I was. I started, I was with several firms. I was initially with a company called Bradshaw Smith. Might be familiar with some of their principals, and then worked for Arthur Andersen. And when Arthur Andersen closed its doors, unfortunately, most of our team moved over to Deloitte. And then I did do a short stint at Ernst & Young as well. So.
Thank you. Were those in Las Vegas?
All in Las Vegas.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I didn't know if there was a connection because, as I recall, Micon was doing sign manufacturing in Utah at some point. If I
It
recall.
was in Hurricane, Utah. Yes.
Oh, is that anywhere near Cedar City or?
It's
no?
close. It's about less than an hour drive.
Okay, but they shuttered that at a certain point. It might have been right around that time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but no personal connection there.
Okay, just coincidence.
Exactly.
Okay.
Gateway to Zion, right?
That's right. That's right.
Can I ask a bit about Hong Kong then? I didn't realize Melco had two listings in the U.S. Do they still, or is it just one?
They do. They have, so Melco Resorts and Entertainment, the main operating company, has a NASDAQ listing. And then in 2018, we spun off one of our subsidiaries onto the New York Stock Exchange. So we had two listings from that point on.
Okay. Yeah, it's the NASDAQ one that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, it's the main operating company. So that's.
So then based on what you're describing, then you weren't doing the back and forth on the jet foil from Hong Kong to Macau?
I was, yes. So I was, as probably in the background materials, I had a visa in Macau and paid taxes in Macau as well, but my permanent tax residence at the time was Hong Kong. So I traveled extensively to Macau, to the Philippines, and to Europe as well.
Okay.
And so you were able to obtain your criminal history from the Macanese through you were able to get around the Macau Data Privacy Act.
That's right.
Thank you for
That's right.
That.
It was not a simple thing,
Right.
but at the end, I after speaking with two attorneys and getting different advice, I was able to get assistance from Melco's compliance department and their surveillance department to have a proxy named for me to file my application in person. And that was received just a few weeks ago. So
Thank you. How did you get connected with Melco?
Just through contacts. There are a number of U.S. Executives there that have been licensed here in Nevada, worked at Caesars, different Park Place Entertainment. So just kind of through current contacts there.
Because I didn't see you. It kind of jumps from Vegas, Henderson, Hong Kong. Immediately.
Big change.
Yeah. And I guess you probably would have had to endure the lockdowns as well then at a certain point.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. To my comment of happy to be back.
I didn't have any questions on your background, came back clean. I did have one question on the compliance side though. So Is it accurate that you're on the compliance committee now?
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been serving on that?
Just for a month.
Have you served on a compliance committee previously?
I have not formally served, but I have been extensively involved in developing compliance departments in the past. So I periodically attended Ameristar's compliance committee, and we were just forming a compliance committee at Melco, and so was part of the person that hired consultants and helped draft documents, that sort of thing. So
And the plan is for you to migrate off of that committee and to find someone else? Is that it?
no, I believe I'll stay on,
Uh-huh.
and we've got independent board members and myself. So I replaced the executive director who was on, who was one of the selling shareholders, and it's no longer with the company.
Watkins.
No further questions for me. I don't have any questions or concerns related to your background. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, your application is for licensure as manager and key executive. There's no question about your qualifications and
Absolutely.
How about on the business side? Can you give us an update?
Absolutely. So similar to Aristocrat, we have seen some substantial growth in our business. We're a private company, but don't release results. But we do entirely leasing business in North America, and of electronic table game products. And slightly different than some of our peers, COVID actually was a catalyst to our growth because our the stadiums and the standalone devices did not require a dealer, and were also very complementary to some of the COVID restrictions, social distancing restrictions. So we saw quite a big pickup during COVID, and that's continued into 2021. And on a more positive note, we were a substantial part of our business in 2021 was North America, but we're now starting to see the international markets open up as well. So Europe, Latin America, Asia, slowly opening up and seeing some demand there as well.
And so you're seeing patrons start to acclimate to a non-traditional environment.
That's right. No, that's a great question. That was another benefit that we saw was, maybe the younger patrons that were, a little bit reluctant to play on a table with other people are a good candidate for our product.
So it's a live product. It's not broadcast, and there's no wagering on what happens on the floor, for example.
Well, there's various setups. So there's the standalone product where it's just a 4-8 seat, or we have the stadiums, yes, where you have the broadcast within the casino.
All right. Anything else?
We would be remiss if we didn't take the opportunity to thank Agent Lombardo for his assistance. He is the epitome of the good standard for the state of Nevada, and it was a pleasure to work with him.
Yeah, he was helpful to us as well. He's a great agent. He worked for one of the federal agencies involved in immigration in the past, and so he gave us a very complete explanation for your Cyprus citizenship.
Yes.
Which was a question. So thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I echo Kimberly's gratitude. He was very patient, and especially working through a lot of the international, backgrounds and things there have some complications. So.
Okay.
Yeah, he's great. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Nope. None for
All
me.
right. With that, I'd ask for a motion.
Chair Gibson, I move to recommend approval of non-restricted item number 3 as read into the record by Secretary Rupert.
Madam Secretary.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Chair Gibson?
Yes.
I believe we need to make a correction to the motion approving the prior month's disposition. I believe Member Katsaros said August, and it should have been September. We may want to just redo that motion.
All right.
Just to make the record clear.
I will do that. I move to approve the Nevada Gaming Control Board minutes from the workshop held on September 26, 2022, along with the disposition items from the Nevada Gaming Control Board's September 2022 meeting.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We will take a break. We're scheduled to start restricted at 11. So we're out for about an hour and 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back. It's 11 o'clock by my time, and we will begin our restricted agenda. Madam Secretary, let's proceed with the items on our restricted consent agenda. There were no questions or issues with these items, and no appearances were required.
Restricted number 1 is the application of SNS Hospitalities LLC, doing business as The Tavern for a restricted gaming license, and the application of Max Smilo for licensure as sole member and manager. Restricted number 2 is the application of Woody's Entertainment Inc., doing business as Lucky Tavern for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 3 is the application of Nevada Restaurant Services Inc., doing business as Dottie's number 216 for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 4 is the application of Nevada Restaurant Services Inc., doing business as Dottie's number 215 for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 5 is the application of Mathvig Investments LLC for licensure to receive a percentage of gaming revenue from Sartini Gaming LLC, doing business at Lamplighter Bar. Restricted number 6 is the application of Speedy Mart Inc., doing business as Speedy Mart number 129 for a waiver of the Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 4.080 as noted on the agenda. Restricted number 7 is the application of Sartini Gaming LLC, doing business at El Luchador Mexican Kitchen and Cantina Henderson for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 8 is the application of United Coin Machine Company, doing business as Century Gaming Technologies, doing business at 7-Eleven store number 38645 for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 9 is the application of United Coin Machine Company, doing business as Century Gaming Technologies, doing business at Bunkhouse Station LLC for a restricted gaming license. Restricted number 10 is the application of Best Bet Products Inc., doing business at Liquorland for a restricted gaming license.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on these items?
None for me.
None for me either.
Okay, with no discussion, would either of you like to make a motion?
I will do that. I move to recommend approval of restricted agenda items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, as written to the record by Secretary Rupert, with conditions to apply as follows. For item number 2, the surveillance system and/or mirrors must be inspected and approved by the Nevada Gaming Control Board Enforcement Division within 60 days of issuance of the state gaming license, and thereafter be maintained at or above the standard that is approved. And for item 6, the waiver of the provisions of Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 4.080 in conjunction with the approval granted in April of 2022 shall expire on the date of the regularly scheduled Nevada Gaming Commission meeting in April 2023.
Okay. Any issues with that motion? If not, let's go ahead, please.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, let's please read in our next item, please.
You have one request for final approval of a new game. That item is 235 Stud Poker, submitted by Scientific Games.
Okay, thank you. There are no appearances necessary on this item. Member Casares, do you have anything to add? Any comments?
No, I'll just note that we didn't have any problems from a regulatory perspective during the field trial, and I'm happy to make a motion in support of it.
Okay. Member Watkins.
I'm happy to support it as well.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
I move to recommend approval of the new game as noted on the agenda and read into the record by Secretary Rupert.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Okay, Madam Secretary, our next item, please.
The next item for your consideration is the excluded person nomination of Leonard Morgan Hairston as noted on the agenda.
Okay, so we have a remote appearance for this item by Senior Dag McKella. Let's let him cue in.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair Gibson, Member Katsaros, Member Watkins, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm John McKella with the Attorney General's Office. I have a presentation for your decision today and whether to nominate Leonard Morgan Hairston for inclusion on the list of excluded persons. Pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 463.151, a person may be placed on the list of excluded persons if the board and the Nevada Gaming Commission determine that the presence of a person in a Nevada gaming establishment poses a threat to the interests of Nevada or licensed gaming, or both. In making the determination of whether to nominate a person for inclusion on the list of excluded persons, NRS 463.151 states that the board may consider prior felony convictions, crimes involving moral turpitude, violations of the gaming laws of any state, failure to disclose a licensable gaming interest in Nevada, willful evasion of Nevada gaming fees or taxes, notorious or unsavory reputation which would adversely affect public confidence and trust the gaming industry is free from criminal or corrupt elements, and a written order of a governmental agency which excludes or ejects a person from establishments with gaming. Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 28.010 sets out that a finding of any one of these factors is sufficient to include a person on the list of excluded persons. Mr. Hairston satisfies 3 of the factors. Mr. Hairston has prior felony convictions. Mr. Hairston has committed crimes involving moral turpitude. And Mr. Hairston has been excluded from establishments which conduct gaming by the written order of a governmental agency. First, Mr. Hairston has been convicted of 3 felonies in Nevada. On August 12th, 2015, Mr. Hairston was convicted of attempted theft. On January 18th, 2005, Mr. Hairston was convicted of attempted theft. And on September 27th, 2002, Mr. Hairston was convicted of grand larceny. The facts giving rise to these felony convictions all occurred in licensed gaming establishments in Nevada and involved the theft of gaming chips from the gaming licensee or from the patron, or the redemption or attempted redemption of counterfeit gaming chips. Mr. Hairston has committed crimes involving moral turpitude. Generally, a crime of moral turpitude is a crime that is contrary to the accepted rules of morality and the duties owed between persons or to society in general. In Nevada, a crime of moral turpitude includes crimes that constitute intentional wrongs with unlawful or improper intent. Conspiracy to commit a crime is a crime of moral turpitude if the underlying crime is a crime of moral turpitude. Crimes which involve intentional dishonesty, fraud, or intent to defraud are crimes of moral turpitude. Theft, larceny, and burglary are crimes of moral turpitude as they constitute intentional wrongs and acts of dishonesty. Mr. Hairston has been convicted of a number of crimes of moral turpitude, all of which involved gaming. The 3 felony convictions I highlighted for you are crimes of moral turpitude. Additionally, on February 14th, 2020, Mr. Hairston was convicted of conspiracy to commit a crime. This conviction was based on Mr. Hairston's attempt to manufacture a cheating device in the form of counterfeit gaming chips. On June 27th, 2008, Mr. Hairston was convicted of conspiracy to commit theft. The facts giving rise to these convictions for crimes of moral turpitude all occurred in licensed gaming establishments in Nevada or involved the manufacture of counterfeit gaming chips of Nevada licensees. Mr. Hairston has been excluded from establishments which conduct gaming by the written order of a governmental agency. On August 12, 2015, a Nevada judge ordered as a probation condition for Mr. Hairston, quote, "Do not enter any gaming establishment, including bars, unless employed," end quote. On September 27, 2002, a Nevada judge ordered as a probation condition for Mr. Hairston, quote, "Defendant not to gamble or enter into a gaming establishment during the term of probation," end quote. Further evidence that Mr. Hairston poses a threat to the interests of this state and or licensed gaming is demonstrated by the fact that Mr. Hairston seems to be incapable of staying out of trouble in Nevada casinos. This is clearly demonstrated by the fact that Mr. Hairston has been arrested by board agents approximately 34 times from 1990 through 2021, based on theft of casino gaming chips from licensees or patrons, or counterfeit casino gaming chip production. Standing alone, Mr. Hairston's felonies, Mr. Hairston's crimes of moral turpitude, and the court-ordered exclusions of Mr. Hairston are each sufficient in and of themselves under NRS 463.151 to place Mr. Hairston on Nevada's list of excluded persons. Thus, the board may nominate Mr. Hairston for inclusion on Nevada's list of excluded persons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senior Dag McKilla. I just note that this is a very traditional nominee for the list of excluded persons. We have four different primary indicators by which, according to which, in any case, any single one is sufficient to nominate a person or recommend nomination. And we have four that are outlined here. With the last one being, very, I think, illustrative of the problem. Arrested 34 times for theft or counterfeit of casino gaming chips. So I support this nomination. I turn to my colleagues for any comments, please.
I'll echo the chair's comments. I think also this is a very traditional proposal for the list of excluded persons. I think we struggled with, or we, had more conversation about our last nominee because we struggled to find the exact nexus between gaming because it was mostly focused on his human trafficking inside of Nevada casinos. And so this one obviously has that direct nexus in that he has been stealing from Nevada casinos and that he has made Nevada casinos a target of his criminal activity on multiple occasions and arrested over 30 times in relationship to it. So I don't have any concerns with recommending him for the list of excluded persons.
And I'll just follow on with those thoughts as well. He clearly qualifies for nomination. The question is whether it's good policy for them to nominate this particular person. And I say that's a resounding yes, based upon the types of crimes, the sheer volumes of arrests and interactions we've had, police agencies have had with him. He's a serial gaming offender, clearly. He's kind of a menace to our regulatory oversight of the casinos. And I would shudder to think how many more agents we might need if there was many others engaging in the levels of criminal activity that this individual has done. And I like Senior Dag McKellar's quote from a second ago. He is incapable of staying out of trouble. And I fully agree with that. And I'm happy to support his nomination into the inclusion of excluded persons.
All right. Well, with support all around, I ask for a motion, please.
Chair Gibson, I will make that motion. In the matter of the exclusion of Leonard Morgan Harrison from licensed gaming establishments in the state of Nevada, I move to nominate Mr. Harrison to the list of excluded persons based on the criteria specified in NRS 463.151 sub 2 and 463.151 sub 3A and 3D. This motion for nomination is specifically being based on the following. One, as presented by counsel, Mr. Harrison has been convicted of felonies under Nevada law. Two, as presented by counsel, Mr. Harrison has been convicted of crimes of moral turpitude. And three, as presented by counsel, Mr. Harrison is a person who has been ordered to stay out of casinos by Nevada courts. The board finds each of these three reasons for exclusion independent of the other two reasons is sufficient for the board to nominate Mr. Harrison to the Nevada's list of excluded persons.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, please.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our casino player dispute appeal.
You have one casino player dispute appeal. Item 1 is Deborah Vecchiarelli versus William Hill, Nevada 1, doing business at Harrah's Laughlin Racebook and Sports Pool. The hearing examiner recommends the agent's decision denying payment be affirmed.
Okay, any conversation, any discussion?
Not for me.
I'll just comment that I sympathize with Miss Vecchiarelli, if I'm pronouncing it right, position, but this is a clear affirmation in my view that we need to affirm the decision made by the hearings examiner. It's cut and dry, frankly.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an interesting scenario to have the horse disqualified, after the event. But the House rules control, and it's what occurs, the placement on the day of the race. So I agree with that. So let's.
She had good picks for the trifecta.
Yeah, she did. I'd ask for a motion.
Sure, I will do that. I move to affirm the decision made by the hearings examiner resulting in denial of payment to the respondent in the matter of case number 22LG00473.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Katsaros?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, this brings us to our last agenda item, public comment.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
Okay. So anyone wishing to make a public comment, please step forward to the podium and state your name for the record. Anyone in Carson City? Seeing no one. Anyone in Las Vegas? Seeing no one. That will close our public comment section. And Madam Secretary, we are adjourned. That is the completion of our board meeting for the month of October. Thank you.